Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Antimatter Games podcast. I am your host, Chris Garris. With me, Matthew Blake.
Cheers.
And Sam Jennings.
Hey.
This is our first podcast. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I'll say.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. I've been looking forward to doing this with you guys specifically, actually, for a couple of years now. Since I started watching, I guess, Easy Allies like 4 years ago, and then Game Trailers before that, I've always been a big fan of their podcasts. And I've always wanted to do this with some of my friends. So we're finally making it happen, and all it took was a plague.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's always a silver lining.
Yeah. So tonight we're going to go over some games that we've been playing. We're going to go over some news. We got some bets. We got some games. It's going to be lots of fun. So we're going to start tonight with the game. I like to call this pleb or pro. So we're going to go round robin. I'm going to pick a genre, and we're going to rapid fire off in order names from the genre. Okay, so it's going to be first-person shooters. We're going to start with Sam. I'll give you an easy one this time, Sam. Then we'll go Matt, and then me, and then we'll keep going around. Now, the first person that gets out, you are the pleb. So when we're done playing the game, you have to say, hi, my name is so-and-so, and I'm a pleb. The winner, the last man standing, says, hi, my name is so-and-so, and I'm a pro. And then the middleman finishes with, and I'm a filthy casual.
Okay.
Sound good? So first-person shooters. Sam, go ahead.
All of the Call of Duties.
Okay, Call of Duty. Matt, you're next.
Doom.
And just to saying, you have 5 seconds before we move on, okay?
Oh,
All right.
Okay.
Red Faction.
Apex?
3. Yep.
Blood.
Oh, good one. Counter-Strike.
Battlefront.
Star Wars Dark Forces.
Battlefield. Three, two, one. You're out. Matt, you're up. You're next.
Wolfenstein.
This should be fun. Quake.
Good one. Corridor 7, Alien Invasion.
Medal of Honor.
Blakestone.
So obscure. Duke 3D.
Dusk.
Duke Nukem Forever.
Strafe.
Resistance 2, Fall of Man.
Oh, not the Resistance series.
No.
Oh, well then Resistance 1. We should just do series.
I think I already said Resistance 1, but we'll let it slide.
Okay. Resistance 3 then.
Thinking. Killzone, Shadowfall.
Oh, nice. Time Splitters.
Ooh, excellent. Great game. Oh man, first-person shooters. Did I say Red Faction?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Red Faction 2.
GoldenEye.
Doom 64.
Perfect Dark.
Oh,
3,
I think I'm out.
2.
Star Wars Jedi Knight was going to be my follow-up, but that's also kind of Dark Forces too. Well,
Guaranteed if I wasn't under pressure, I would have been able to think of some more. Write you a nice big list.
well, also the fact that I pulled a bunch of Wolfenstein and Doom clones out of my ass. You were in trouble. You were in trouble.
For sure.
I got all the 90s shooters.
Sam, I think you know what you need to do.
Yeah, remind me.
So you
What
say
exactly
hi.
do I need to say? Yeah.
You say, hi, my name is Sam, and
Yeah.
what are you?
Hi, my name is Sam, and I'm a pleb.
And Matt, what are you?
Well, I think we should go to you first.
I'm just a filthy casual.
My name is Matt, and I'm a pro.
I think we all knew that already. All right, we're going to talk about... Yeah, that's my shirt, just for the record.
Well, not anymore.
It's true. Pass it on. That's fine. I'm okay with that. We're going to talk about a game called Doom Eternal. We've all finished playing it, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And it's a pretty fantastic video game. So I'm going to go to you, Sam, first. What were your initial impressions of Doom when you started playing it?
Like Doom Eternal specifically?
Doom Eternal, yeah.
I loved it. I mean, it's very similar to the first one, and by that one I mean like the one that came out in 2016, which is one of my all-time favorite games.
It's very good.
It is. It's got such a good pace to it. Like, I don't like games where I have to do a lot of thinking or a lot of planning or a lot of strategy. Like, I like just learning a little moveset and reacting. And that's exactly what this game is. It's just like you're hyperventilating and having a panic attack the entire time you're playing this game. And that's exactly what I wanted from it.
When you're playing Doom Eternal, you enter it takes a couple minutes, but you enter like a Zen state of blood and gore, and you just become the Doom Slayer.
Yeah.
Like, you forget who you are and what your purpose is, and your only purpose is to slay demons.
Yeah.
It's a good feeling.
There's in the most recent Kingdom Hearts that came out, there's this like flow motion thing where it's like you can attack and you just kind of like go through this weird like same thing, like this Zen state where attacks just like flow into each other. And that's exactly how I feel with Doom and Doom Eternal. It's like you just shut off and your body is just reacting to things, and it's like you see your health is getting low and you've already somehow like pulled out the chainsaw and you've killed somebody and you're like, I didn't even think about that. It just happened. And I've never had that with any game other than those two.
I saw in response to that, I saw an interesting Reddit post where someone said that Doom Eternal was actually like a character action game like Devil May Cry or Bayonetta that had successfully passed itself off as a shooter. And I think there's actually a lot true with that. Like, you have a move set, you kind of condition certain responses, and you're just sort of on the go. And it's less about like, yeah, accuracy matters, especially when taking out weak points and stuff. But because you can chainsaw and get ammo back, you're not as worried about like whiffing a shot as you are about not taking that shot. You know, you just got to always be fighting. Something else I really liked is they changed it up a bit from Doom 2016. They definitely wanted you to play it a certain way. They limited your ammo, so you couldn't just rely on one weapon or one tactic. You have to use the chainsaw, but you can always use it now because it regenerates. And what I really like about it is, whether or not you agree, and I do, that it's an improvement on the 2016 formula, because they changed it enough that I could see myself going back and playing 2016 and appreciating it as its own thing. Like, the two games, they didn't just do 2016, but better. There are some things that if you liked about 2016, Doom Eternal will not scratch that itch. And so I feel like they preserved 2016 as a great game while at the same time building on it.
Nothing gets my heart rate up more than being almost dead, going for the chainsaw, knowing that you have one chainsaw fuel, so you can hit most base enemies, and for some reason trying to attack an enemy that's like a level 2 or level 3, and then just panicking because it's not working, and your health, the sound goes, it's like boop, boop. The sound goes, and you're like, oh fuck, what do I do? That happened to me a lot of times, and I don't think anything is.
It's always on those guys that look like the imps, but they're slightly bigger.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, there's one, and then you're like, fuck, no.
They kind of look like Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Revenants?
No, not Revenants.
Yeah,
they're like imps, just a little bigger.
Oh, the stalkers. They can like. Yes.
Yeah.
They look like they should be
worst.
a one chainsaw, and they're not.
Because you think you're safe, and then the chainsaw doesn't go through them.
Has anyone done that mastery thing where you have to like kill like 30 of them with lock-ons from the rocket launcher?
Yeah.
No, I have not.
I
didn't do a lot of those.
It's frustrating, but it's really satisfying.
I did all of those, and then my trophy glitched out.
Oh, that's
awful. Goody. Yeah. There was something else I definitely wanted to say about Doom Doom Eternal as it stands, but I feel like we should touch on the recent news about it.
What's that?
With Mick Gordon. So someone noticed.
Oh yeah.
So someone noticed, like looking at the sound files from a 2016 song. I believe it was Rip and Tear. Maybe it was BFG Division. I think it was Rip and Tear. And looking at the sound file of the 2016 version, it's like peaks and valleys, peaks and valleys. You just. Then in the Doom Eternal version, it's just like a bar. And there's technically peaks and valleys within that. And they're just like, why is the mixing so bad? And Mick Gordon responded, I think it was on Twitter this happened, and it was like, I was not involved in the final mix of this.
Yeah.
And it came to light that only some songs were actually mixed by Mick Gordon. And when comments like, does this mean, how is this going to affect future work with id and everything? And he said he doubts they'll work together again.
Yeah, I saw that. That's a real bummer because that soundtrack really makes the game.
Yeah.
And as to why Bethesda or id would cut Mick Gordon out of the mixing process,
it's kind of baffling. It's really a tentpole.
I feel like that's, for me, like id Software and Bethesda are like two separate entities. Bethesda is like Fallout 76 and Jank, and id Software is polished, amazing Doom. And I feel like that's more of a Bethesda decision. You know what I mean?
I can see the decision.
I feel like greasy corporate Bethesda had their hand in that one to like save money or something.
Or just get it out the door faster.
Now they've lost old Mick forever.
Yeah, and I feel like even though they never explicitly stated it, like QuakeCon or any of those big presentations, they're always talking about the combat and the Doomslayer and everything. They always compare it to the music. They're always talking about the music.
It's a huge part. It's a huge part.
Really
I still listen to Doom 2016 soundtrack all the time. I put it on when I'm running. It's super good. It's super good.
It's
and nuanced.
It's odd one to mess up.
Sam.
Yeah.
Is Doom Eternal too hard? Is it too hard?
No. No, I don't think it's too hard at all. I mean, I only played it on the normal difficulty. There were definitely parts that were frustrating, but they were not things that it forced you to kind of sit down and slow down for a second and actually think about what you were doing, which generally you don't do in this game. But I would say Doom 16 was almost too easy if we're going to compare them or give them like a too easy or too hard. Like, I didn't find this one too hard. The only part that I would complain about is the stupid Marauders. And it was for the reason that has been discussed online that I've seen, and it's because they slow down the pace of the game. Like, everything else is just so fast and so reactionary, and then all of a sudden it's like, I have to stop everything I'm doing and focus on this one enemy. So I think the Marauders themselves were too hard for the flow of the game, but overall, no, the game was fine.
The Marauders for me were like, I love them and I hated them because most of the combat flows the same, right?
Yeah.
You follow the same cadence, and then all of a sudden a Marauder comes, and it's like, oh shit, I need to clear the whole room, and now take care of this enemy that works on a completely different move set and mechanics than all of the other enemies in Doom.
Yeah.
Like, it's like a Sekiro boss. You're waiting for the attack to parry. Yeah. And when I was playing this game as it had just come out, and I wasn't seeing a lot of things on Twitter or Reddit or any game FAQs or anything like that, it was really hard for me to handle it at first. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, after I finished the game, I saw, okay, well, this is how you do it super quick, which is the quick weapon swap with the
ballista and shotgun.
The super shotgun and the ballista. And I was like, oh shit, I can just kill them in 3 hits. Great.
I was going to ask if quick swapping worked on console.
It does.
Yes,
okay.
It does. It works. Yeah. It works really well, and it's like once you figure that out and once you get that down, the game goes back to being normal. But up until that point, it was frustrating because it didn't fit the flow of the game, and it's like, this is a cool different enemy, but if I want to play Sekiro, I'll play Sekiro. Like, I don't want to. I want to play Doom, and I want to play Doom how I want to play Doom. And
That's
this is
actually
not it.
that's actually one, just as a quick aside, one really positive note to Sekiro is that never really happens in that game. Like you have to parry or you're going to die. For at least most of the humanoid bosses, there's no quick
Yeah.
out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no quick switching and swapping guns. You do or you die.
Yeah. No, I was just wondering because like on PC you just jump between the numbers, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
I was just wondering if that translated. It's cool that it does. It's good that it does.
You can quick swap in Doom, but the only thing is it's only between 2 weapons.
Right.
So that's the
Okay.
frustrating part, where it's like if you're using the super shotgun and you run out of ammo, you switch to the ballista and then you switch back and then you switch to something else, you have to reset that quick switch
Yeah,
again.
it's only like previous, and it's like the last
Yeah.
button on a TV remote.
Yeah, and it's
Back
like
from
if
when
you
that was a
panic and
thing.
hit the wrong thing, you
Yeah.
have to run in circles while you're switching guns to try to like re-get between the 2 of them that you need.
Yeah. Something nice about the Marauder, if it wasn't for them showing up, like the last Marauder in the game, right before the Icon of Sin,
Yeah.
I got so flustered, I double dashed into a zombie, and it put him in a stun state, and I did a glory kill, and I'm like, wait, I could have dashed into these things the whole time?
Oh, that's
And
when
that
you
was like,
realized it.
that's when I realized it, and I didn't get to use it again, because like
Amazing.
5 minutes later, I was in the final boss. But it was a Marauder that flustered me into running into him. So the Marauder teaches.
I was playing the game when you messaged me that about the quick dash, and then I spent about 10 minutes just quick dashing around the room I was in, trying it out, and I'm like, didn't know that either.
Yeah.
That part of the game where you fight that last Marauder, there's like 4 floors of that apartment building,
Mm-hmm.
and then you fight the last boss. I did that all in one go. I died one time on the first floor really quick, and then I just white knuckled it through all of the floors into the boss, and then same thing through the boss to beat the game. And it's probably the most stressed I've ever been playing a video game in my life.
I had to take a break after like about 5 minutes and 10 first attempts at the boss. Yeah.
It's super frustrating.
I was playing on ultraviolence, and I just wasn't learning. You know, it's like what Sam said, like, even though it's a reaction-based game, sometimes you have to stop and think about what your reactions are and change them for the situation. And I was just like, I just have to use the Crucible a lot more. Like, I was saving them. I didn't realize the Crucible things would respawn. So I was like, I thought I only had, like, they were everywhere, but I thought I could only chop down, like, 7 demons tops. So I was using it only for, like, Cyber Mancubus and stuff that I really just didn't want to fuck with.
Yeah, you could do it to most everything. That's actually a really good mechanic. I like that because, yeah, there's a lot of, like, get out of jail free cards there with those power-ups, and they respawn, but, man, you're rushing for them the whole time anyway.
Yeah, you need them.
Yeah.
You're frantic for them the whole time anyway. There's never, like, a down second of that fight.
Oh, yeah. No, there was definitely...
There's like 100 of them, and you need every single one.
I definitely, on the second phase, depleted them all. And was just dashing around, trying to stay alive until more came back.
For sure. All right, let's move on. We got a game Sam's been playing on stream, Final Fantasy VII Remake. And Sam, why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience with it so far?
So my experience, so I've never played any of the Final Fantasy games, so I was very interested to try this one because it seems like a lot of the talk about it has been hype from people waiting for it who played the original. And just, I was very curious how much of it was going to be nostalgia factor as to whether it was good or not. But the more I play it, so I don't know how many chapters there are. I think I'm about halfway through, maybe.
There's 10. There's 10 chapters.
I feel like there's more than 10. I swear I saw like 14 or something.
I don't think so. I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
I'll look it up. We'll find out through the stream. But it's been growing on me. Like the first 2 chapters, I was like, okay, this is cool. Like I get it. Nothing super special. But as you go through the story, it really is the characters. They do start to grow on you. They do start to get more and more in depth as you go through. So I'm enjoying it. It's definitely less of an RPG than I was expecting.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, so
more of an action game?
Out of the 8, I'm on chapter 8 right now. Chapter 3 was the only one where you were able to like walk around and do little like side quests. Everything else has been a straightforward, like, you go here, you fight this thing, you go here, you go here. I haven't had to make like any decisions. I haven't had to do anything that will like change the outcome of the game. So that's been very interesting. It's very straightforward. Like, it feels almost more like a God of War pace.
Yeah.
As opposed to, like,
one thing I've noticed from watching you play, and I was kind of surprised, is that there's a lot of invisible walls. Like, it seems like you're very set on a very specific path, and like you can't go outside of the path at all.
No, not at all. It'll literally be like you'll like the last one I played. You're in this big, what appears to be labyrinth, and when we walked in, I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna get lost in here so fast. But you can't, because you'll go forward and it'll be like 3 paths, and you're like, okay, should I go left, forward, or right? Oh, okay, I can't go left yet, and I can't go right, so I guess we're going forward. So it leads you through the story, which I kind of like. Because I don't know the story, I don't know the background of it, I want to be told the story. I don't have that connection with the characters yet, I don't have that connection with the world. So I feel like if it were just open and I was just kind of doing whatever I wanted, I would miss a lot of important things or a lot of important moments. So I appreciate this storytelling.
Do you like the story so far? Is it grabbing you?
I find the characters are grabbing me. The story, I don't think I know enough of it yet. If that makes sense. Like,
that's kind of telling. You're 8 chapters into the game. You should know quite a bit about it by now.
Well, 8 chapters into like what's part 1 of the game, right?
For sure, but for what is, I'd say, at least 50% of this one game. I know there's going to be other parts for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just myself, like watching you on stream, it hasn't really piqued my interest at all. Watching you, like, I'm not super interested in these characters or what they're doing. Or like Shinra or Midgar or anything like that.
Yeah,
just personally.
How do you feel about giant fans?
Worse than I feel about stairs.
What about the levers?
I feel like this is one of those games where you get into the world, and you get into the world building, and that's when you appreciate these things. So, like, for me, one of my favorite stories, like video game wise, is God of War. I love God of War. I absolutely love it. Would I say the story in the last one that came out was particularly like gripping or enthralling? Maybe not. It might have just been like, that was an okay story. But when you love those characters, you're like, I don't care if I have to watch Kratos like make coffee for an hour. I love every minute of this. But that's because I love that character.
The Kojima approach.
So I think I don't know if the story is anything particularly special or unique. But if you love it, like if you love those characters and you love that world, you're just like, this is great. I just want more of this.
Matt, have you played the original Final Fantasy VII?
Not all the way through. It was kind of more my brother's thing. Back then, I was playing, like, I was more of the Resident Evil and, like, shooter action game.
Okay.
Also, Metal Gear. My brother was the one back when we had our PlayStation who was hardcore into the Final Fantasy series. He played all of 7, almost beat 9, told me I had to try it. I accidentally saved over his game with my Fresh Start game. He took it real well for a kid his age. Like, it was just, I'm not mad, just disappointed. But I made it up to him. That summer. I was 16, I worked my first summer job, and I used the money to buy a PlayStation 2, and I bought him Final Fantasy X on launch day to make up for it. So,
oh, sweet.
Good job.
Yeah. And then a few years later, I would play and beat Final Fantasy X. I think that was the first one. Yeah.
Is that the only Final Fantasy you've beaten?
Yeah. I like Final Fantasy, but the interesting thing, okay, so in terms of like the linear nature of Final Fantasy VII. From what I remember, the part of the game that has been remade was also rather linear. I don't think you get the airship yet. Final Fantasy games typically open up when you get an airship.
I don't think so. And from what I understand, the next part of the game, after where they decided to finish part 1 of this, is going to be drastically different.
Yeah, so...
You're not in Midgar anymore, but it's going to be like a lot sillier too.
Yeah, so if
apparently.
a memory serves, you do a whole part at the beginning where you're basically leaving the city and sorting out stuff like that. And that's pretty linear because they're actually teaching you the game systems in the original game then. Mm-hmm. And then when you finally leave, I don't know if you get the airship right away, but there was always like an overmap, and then you can choose where to go, and you can go to different cities and do different things, and it opens up. But one thing is, see, back then, it was a lot easier to do like just a simple textured kind of flat world map and move an airship around it, and then when you get to places, load in, right? And I think we're at this weird place where it's just so much effort to do that these days. Like, Final Fantasy games have had fewer and fewer airships, starting actually with Final Fantasy X, where you had an airship, but it was like a menu of all the places you could go. You didn't actually fly it around the world. So it'll be interesting to see if they bring that back. I think if they bring that back...
You can bet they will. You can bet they will, for sure.
Yeah. Like, with the fully implemented, like, just fly around the world, land where you want.
People would be super pissed. The internet would be super mad if they just left out that. That's a huge part of the game for the rest of the game. The airship, right?
It is, but...
And you got to keep in mind as well, the next iteration of this game is probably not coming out for another couple of years.
Yeah.
So that means it's going to be on the PS5. That means there's going to be a solid state disk drive behind it.
Yeah.
So they're going to be able to load in and out of those zones like instantaneously. So I think that will make having an airship super feasible for the developers.
Yeah. No, I mean, it'll definitely be feasible, but will it be worth all the effort of creating that whole system and then creating all the content, right? Like, to make the airship work, you have to have a lot of places to go to. And versus like trimming down, and a little foreshadowing here but there's been a lot of remakes that actually cut stuff from the original. We're seeing that as a trend.
Like Resident Evil 3, for example, actually was missing a lot of stuff from
the
we'll get tower and things like that.
We'll get back to that later. I have some things to say about the Resident Evils and their remakes.
So we're going to call it right now before we move on. Sam, how many years do you think until the next iteration of Final Fantasy VII Remake comes out?
Ooh, this should have been a bet.
4.5.
Matt?
I'm going to say 2.
I'm going to go 3 years.
I'm going to go 2.
Until Final Fantasy VII Remake 2 comes out.
Yeah. I feel like they're up and running now. It's probably being worked on presently.
Yeah. I'm willing to bet there's been a team working on it this entire time.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So I think 2 years. I think you got to strike while the iron's at least warm.
Semi-warm. Lukewarm.
Yeah.
All right. It's time for Stay a While and Listen.
Stay a while and listen.
So we're going to talk about some news. Take a sip.
We're not just going to do Diablo impressions for the next 30 minutes?
We can. Hey, if you win the role at the end of the podcast,
Templar John
so we're going to start with a little bit of old news because honestly this week is a little slow. We're going to talk about the new PS5 controller, the DualSense. Now, Sony unveiled this, I think it was early last week. At least that's when it popped up on my social media everywhere.
Safe bet.
They're being really weird with how they're letting out their media for the PS5. You know, they haven't done a big launch event yet. They haven't shown the console.
I doubt
they haven't shown any launch. They haven't shown any launch games. They just uploaded it to social media and said, "Here's the PS5 controller." I'm sure you both saw it.
I saw it.
What do you guys think?
I think it is a tall order, and it could be very, very, very good. I also feel like some of the new features we had before, and they're coming back.
Why don't you tell us what the features are, Matt?
Well, like the ones that stuck out to me, the two big ones were the haptic feedback, and the pressure-sensitive buttons, which they
call those adaptive buttons.
Yeah,
adaptive.
I believe that's what they called them when they used them on the PlayStation 2.
Oh yeah.
And as someone who played some games that made full use of them, they can be great, and they can be just god-awful. The one thing that sticks out for me is Metal Gear Solid 2 used the pressure-sensitive button. The aim button and the fire button were both square. So if you went into first person, you lightly held down, like lightly pressing the button would cause Snake to draw his gun and aim down the sights, and then you fully press the button to fire, which could be great and really, really tense. You could also end up accidentally shooting someone when you just meant to like scare them with your gun if your hands weren't steady, or just firing outright instead, like skip the aim entirely. And in a stealth game, that was really frustrating when it's like, okay, there's only one guard, and he's the only one in earshot, but this gun isn't silenced, so it has to be a headshot. And then you just shoot the wall next to you, and he gets alerted.
Can you imagine playing Doom Eternal like that?
I feel like there's been enough time and enough technology that they can get it right and not have it be so testy. In fact,
personally, sorry to interrupt. I think it's going to be like the first iteration of VR. I don't know if you guys remember going to arcades in the 90s and playing VR at like Cyberdome in Ottawa or whatever it was called in Toronto. Sorry, Sam. What was your Sega City? Okay. So like the VR back then compared to the VR now is, I mean, they're both technically virtual reality, but they're not even comparable anymore. There's just been a huge leap. And I think that's going to be the case with the PS5 controller. Like, I remember thinking it was a big deal when I got my PS2 with Gran Turismo 3 A-Spec, and thinking it was a big deal that you could just, lightly throttle the car if you pushed lightly on the controller, or full throttle if you pushed all the way down. That would make a big difference in how you went around the track. Yeah. I don't think it's going to be so simple this time.
Fair enough. The other thing, the haptic feedback, I'm interested. I'm very interested. But I'm just I can see it increasing the rate of controller breakage. I'm not trying to be negative here, but like when I think of haptic feedback, actually just Gran Turismo, you could get those racing wheels, and you could get the ones with the motor in them, where if you're trying to turn left and your car hits something, the wheel jerks to the right. Like there's a response. But like, Chris, hold up your hand for a second to the camera. So Chris, with that big meaty thumb, is trying to push his stick to the right. And then the controller says, no, we're going left. That controller's braking. Like, like, I feel like they have to find this like sweet spot where like things can resist and give feedback. But like, if someone pushes too hard, the opposite way the controller's trying to go. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I hope they get it right. I hope they have the technology and everything's great. But I can also, like, at the back of my head being like, there's a lot of really, like, mechanical features they're introducing. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, there's got to have to be little motors and little things in here. And the more parts, I mean, I broke a PlayStation 2 controller. I had a loading screen for a Dragon Ball game.
Oh, is that when you had to twirl the stick around for?
Yeah, to make the little Cybermen grow out, and I wanted to grow as many as possible, and I just snapped the thing.
Me too.
And I don't mean I snapped off the thing. I mean like, you could depress them for like R3. I mean like whatever it was sitting in, that socket just crumbled. Like it was just this loose little like stick. Oh, it was terrible.
So I'm really willing to bet that. Just talking about VR again in comparison, that we're not really we know the features of this controller, but we're not really going to get it until we get it in our hands and play a game.
Oh,
like
yeah.
You can't explain to someone what VR feels like. You just can't until they have it on their head, and then it's like you've seen God for a second. Like you understand, and you couldn't have understood before. So I really think that's what it's going to be like.
Hey, I mean, I'll be using one on my PC if this is a great controller before I pick up a PS5, which I probably will end up doing.
About PC gaming now is you can use a PlayStation controller because I mean they're my personal favorite. I've been a Sony guy for a long time, but I like them better than the Xbox controllers.
Oh yeah, no, I go mouse and keyboard for like shooters and stuff on PC. But when I was playing Sekiro, I was doing it on PC with a PS4 controller. Some games are just better with a controller.
The controller always has a really good feel in your hand, and like besides all of the stuff that you mentioned, Matt, I'm excited for all that. I'm excited just to see how it fits, because they've changed the design of a couple like little spots on it that I think are going to make a big difference.
They have.
It's bigger too. It's thicker to fit all of those little motors in. Yeah,
it's a little bit bigger. The analog sticks have a different grip on the outside so that they slip less. The plastic on the bottom is a different plastic that's a little bit rougher, so like it sticks better in your hand.
Nice.
And on the back, they were saying this is the first time I've ever done this on a PlayStation controller. I'm super stoked. There's no space between like the L1 and the L2 buttons, so you'll be able to push them at the same time.
Ooh.
Which we've never been able to do before. So that might give some interesting like mechanics.
That will allow
you can use 4 fingers.
That will allow another input, right?
Yeah.
Another button essentially. L1 plus L2, R1 plus R3.
Like
L4. R2.
You have another option. So I'm excited to see how it sits in your hand.
Yeah. Now there's 2 more features that we haven't talked about yet. Just going over them quickly. One is a small one, not really a big deal, is a built-in microphone. So if you don't want to wear a headset, you can the controller will pick up your voice, which is cool. And the one that I think is going to be pretty big probably, and we've been using it a lot lately, me and you, Sam, because we've been streaming from our PlayStations to Twitch, is they're going to have, they're not calling it a share button, they're calling it a create button. Create. So any guesses as to what you think that's going to do? They're talking about integrating how you interact with broadcasting and things like that with the PlayStation differently this time.
Yes.
What do you guys think?
I've been reading up a little bit on people's ideas on what it will be for, and I think it's going to there's gonna be a lot more options to load things to social media right away. And people who don't have headsets, having that mic built right into the controller, people are going to be able to just hit that create button, record something, maybe a little gameplay, maybe a little like boss they just beat, something right off the bat, and share it right away to something. And I think that's going to be a big thing on probably a lot of the promotions of new games. Like I know Assassin's Creed always has something with the photo mode where they're like, take your best photo of your boat or something and then send it to us and we'll pick a winner. So I think there's going to be a lot of competitions of like, send us your best whatever, and you'll be able to do it right from the controller straight to social media.
What do you think, Matt?
The create button. Honestly, I hate that I come off like a dick, but it sounds like just the share button with a slightly different name than the marketing team. Like the share button could like post, you could like share videos or pictures or whatever. They're probably adding some new functionality to the share button, and they're calling it the create button. Because you're not just sharing a picture of a game you played, you're creating a picture of a game you played. You know, it's... So you think they just renamed it for marketing purposes, basically? Yeah, basically. I think there's definitely going to be something new. Like, it's going to interface with, like, YouTube or Twitch, whatever. They're going to add some new functionality to it, but they also definitely could have just been, like, the new share button. Like, the PS5 share can do this. And I think it's just marketing. And it makes sense. Also, maybe a little bit of stigma, because I hate the share button. Because I spent so long with start and select, the number of times I hit share while playing a game, and it just screwed me up. I hate the share button. So I don't hate the create button because it hasn't ruined games for me yet.
I'm curious to see what it's going to share too. Like if they're going to have their own kind of PS5 community or something, because they have been pulling back on things that are affiliated with it. Like the PlayStation, you used to be able to hit the share button and you could send stuff right to Facebook, and they ditched Facebook, so there's no integration there anymore.
That's true, yeah.
You only share to
their own little ecosystem.
I think you can only share to like YouTube or your friends. So there used to be a lot of different options. So I'm curious to see if there's going to be their own kind of like PS5 create world where like everything you share goes there, or if they're just going to open up, it goes right to Twitch, right to YouTube, right to wherever you want. So
besides making connecting to YouTube and Twitch a lot more user friendly and a lot quicker, I can't. First of all, I hope they don't try to do their own thing like Twitch, because the last thing we need is another platform for people to get lost in when they're trying to make content. But again, just like the haptics, I don't think we'll really know until they give us all the details.
Yeah.
And there's rumors that they're going to do their launch event in May, but I guess we'll see if that actually happens. They need to do something soon.
Speaking of haptics, I actually have a controller with built-in haptics, and it's like the best controller ever. I'll show you. It's right here. I'll show you.
Who knows? Maybe they won't announce anything. They're just going to put this stuff on sale. You're going to find it on Amazon today and be like, what? When did the PS5 come out?
See
hopefully
this?
It's just, yeah.
See this?
Yeah.
This controller had haptics. I know, but it had haptics, and look what else it had, which actually was something that was rumored to come to the PS5, and I'm a little disappointed it wasn't.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So you got 6.
Well, actually, you can buy for the PS4 the 2 rear button attachments like the Xbox Elite controller has. You can get that now.
When this is all over and we can get together,
a little attachment.
We should actually do some stuff with this, because it may have flopped. It had some pretty cool features.
I don't need any more buttons to mash. I have enough.
Yeah. No. I mean these things, these programmable touchpads with like you can actually basically there's little rumble motors in them, and they feel where your thumb is, so you can make it so like it rumbles your thumb more the further to the outside of the circle you get. And you can also have it like you can feel 4 buttons there if you set it up for 4 buttons. It's weird. It's kind of neat. There was a lot of weird things. It's just, if we can all get together in one place, goofing around with that might be fun.
Oh, we will eventually. Now, another story from this week, probably the biggest story of this week so far. Nothing else has really happened. Jason Schreier has left Kotaku.
That's how you pronounce it.
What, Kotaku?
No, Shrier.
Oh, I mean, that's how I say it. I could be wrong. Now, personally, I've been following Kotaku for a couple of years, but Jason Schreier didn't really come on my radar until he wrote that article about Red Dead Redemption 2's development cycle, and kind of broke the story on Crunch, or at least made it like widely popular. It was picked up by the New York Times and everything. Sam, you probably weren't, I'm guessing, familiar with Jason Schreier before this podcast, right?
Full disclosure, neither was I.
Oh no, really?
I mean, I heard about. I remember the article. I
Yeah,
just like
Twitter more, man.
his name didn't. Well, I mean, I heard about this. I heard about his departure and like the news.
So basically,
I just
any big story you've seen in gaming over the last year or two has been broken by Jason Schreier. For the most part, like
I remember the Crunch
stuff,
one.
Yeah, all the stuff that went on with Rockstar, and then all of the development issues that the Star Wars game had. What was it, Battlefront 2?
Or
same thing.
What about 1313? I guess that eventually became. I don't know. Anyways, guys got cred. I get that.
Yeah. So Matt, should I just unfollow Kotaku now?
I mean, no. Unless you only read his articles, in which case, yes. I don't know.
I just mean he was kind of the driving force behind that page, and now he's gone.
Well,
So he's
yeah,
gone to,
and he's not the only one. I did do a little looking into this, and apparently they changed ownership in 2019, and
okay.
there's a huge. His departure is a bit of a caused by a kind of a beef with the new management, and there's been some other people at other the new owners have a bunch of sites, own a bunch of sites now, like The Onion and other things, and there was I wanted to read more about this. Some guy from another site was told to stick to sports. I don't know if that's literal or metaphorical, because when I tried to find out about that, it was behind a paywall on a Washington Post site, and I said, screw it.
Screw that.
So apparently the new owners are kind of dicks, and they're a little heavy-handed, telling people what to say and what not to, and he just didn't like that. And they fired some dude for not sticking to sports. Again, I don't know if that's a metaphor. He could have been a sports journalist. I don't know.
I think he actually was.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, Kotaku's been around for a long time. I don't think that they're going to become immediately devoid of meaningful content, but this could be a slippery slope thing. And a descent into madness.
So personally, I follow Kotaku. Outside of Jason's articles, which are usually pretty interesting, I scroll by a lot of Kotaku's headlines, and I'm like, oh, slow news day, eh, guys? A lot of this stuff is really clickbaity and grabby.
Yeah.
So I think personally with Shrier gone, there's not going to be much reason to follow Kotaku when I'm also following IGN and Polygon and PC Gamer, and generally all the headlines are the same anyway.
Yeah.
Whereas Shrier is doing real investigative journalism, and he's gone to Bloomberg now, which is a large, widely publicized news publication. To, in his own words, I think he's going to continue chasing down the story of crunch and labor in game development.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good move for him. Definitely. I mean, he was a serious games journalist, and he should be at a serious journalism outfit.
Oh yeah.
To
me, it's like he went pro, basically.
Basically, yeah.
So that's cool.
I don't have much more to say on this.
Okay, moving on. And lastly for the news, something I know Matt has a lot to say, because we've already had a conversation about this. So news came out, or I don't know if it came out or if it was leaked last week, that Capcom has been developing Resident Evil 4 Remake for a while. Apparently it's being developed alongside, or it was being developed alongside of Resident Evil 2 and 3. And I guess with the reception of 2 and 3, they decided to go ahead and finish it and let that news out there. So what do you think about that?
Oh, I have a lot to say on this.
Because I know it's personally one of my favorite video games ever. And I know the original is also one of yours.
It is. But, okay. So let's talk about Resident Evil remakes in general. The first Resident Evil remake was a remake of the original Resident Evil. It maintained the tank controls, but it upped all the textures, redid the cheesy as hell voice work. It came out on the GameCube, right? It was just called Resident Evil, and it was a top to bottom remake of the original Resident Evil for the PlayStation. But they added stuff to it. They didn't just refine what was there. They added new areas. They added a new side story. They added a bunch to it so that not only was it a faithful recreation of what everyone loved from the PlayStation Resident Evil, but it was more. Then we get the Resident Evil 2 remake years later. It's worth pointing out also that the GameCube is what Resident Evil 4 came out on. So Resident Evil 4 came out on the same system as the first of the remakes. Jump forward a decade and change, we get the Resident Evil 2 remake, and it's awesome. I love that. So I wasn't too upset about the fact that a few little areas had been trimmed. and a few enemies had been trimmed in Resident Evil 2, because they're doing two different like, you can play through as two different characters, and then you can play through them again. There was a lot of content there, you know? Resident Evil 3, I really loved watching you guys play it. But you can get through it really, really quickly. And not only did they trim areas and enemies, they trimmed what I thought would be like the selling feature of the game. Where in the first Resident Evil, at certain 3, for the PlayStation, you could choose a path. Like, little decisions would come up, like you're restarting a generator, but then zombies swarm you, and you can, like, either run or, like, crank up the voltage so you fry them all on the fence. Like, there were little choice points where you had to make a decision that would affect how the campaign went down. And I'm kind of shocked they didn't, include that in Resident Evil 3, especially given how quickly you can beat it. Like, it would have given an incentive to replay other than doing it quicker. And so now getting into a Resident Evil 4 remake, I'm a little concerned about the fact that, one, unlike the first 3 games that were made for the original PlayStation, Resident Evil 4 was made, GameCube's a long time ago, but it has over-the-shoulder aiming. It has good motion. It had good controls. It's not as outdated as all the Resident Evil remakes up to this point were, you know? I feel like you could get the HD remaster of Resident Evil 4 for your PS4 right now, and it would play fine. You probably had to have a great time. So I don't know if it needs it. And the other thing is, like, there's a level of cheese that was added to 4 to make the over-the-top action work.
Oh, yeah. Mr. Kennedy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, you just got this little dwarf Napoleon who lives in a castle with a bug lord, and they're shooting at you with crossbows. Like, how do you handle that? Do you use the original voice work and maintain the cheese? Do you try and make that serious? Good fucking luck. Like, I feel like it's too soon after 3. I'm worried that they're going to cut iconic moments from 4 because they're too cheesy if they try and make it serious, or they're going to cheese up a few of the serious moments trying to make it cheesy. I'm not saying it can't be done, and it can't be done well. I just am not confident it will be. This feels like 3 felt like kind of a cash grab. But like, it was originally so similar to 2, it made sense to put 3 out right after the 2 remake. Because
So let me ask you this, Matt. So if Resident Evil 4 remake comes out and it's just as well thought out and fleshed out as RE2 remake, will that make you happy?
Well, see, the thing is, 2, it won't make me unhappy. But the thing about 2 is, the alternative to 2 is like a pixely, tank control-y game from '96 on the original PlayStation.
No one is arguing that this isn't going to be as drastic of a remake, but just me personally, as a big fan of the game, I'm very excited, even if it's like a 1-for-1 remake, to see Leon in that environment, in like with RE Engine, how amazing it looks in like glorious 4K 60 frames per second on my TV. I'm fine with that, no problem.
Well, see,
don't do anything else. Just make it look amazing. Yeah,
well, see, my concern is they will make it look amazing, and it will look great, but it won't be a 1-to-1 remake. It'll be less than. Like, I feel like they're probably going to cut corners to get it out quickly, and they're going to gloss over it with pretty graphics. But I feel like the fun of Resident Evil 4, because Resident Evil 4 became fun. It started kind of horror-ish. You're running around, there's a guy with a chainsaw on his head. But before long, you're upgrading your guns, you're suplexing zombies so hard that their heads explode. You know,
fun
like,
because it's so silly, right?
Right?
It's fun. It's fun because, you don't need to take it super serious. That's why.
Yeah.
And like playing through Resident Evil 2 remake, that game is super serious. There's not really any jokes or puns or things going on there.
No.
And I think they can both be fun for different reasons and still exist.
Oh yeah, no, I think they can both be fun. I just With 2, the cut content didn't bother me so much because what was there was so good and there was so much of it and it was, from so far back. I feel like with 4, like, you're taking something that exists and was actually remastered like 2 years ago and being like, we're going to do it again for just graphics. And I don't know if like just graphics alone will do it for me.
But this isn't like they're going to up-res what they did 2 years ago. This is like a ground up rebuild of the game in like current day graphics.
Yeah.
It's not a remaster, it's a remake.
I get
a big
that.
difference.
I get that. Difference. I'm just saying that if it's a ground to floor like remake and they don't put it all in, like it's actually less of a game than the thing they're remaking. Like gameplay, graphics, right? And like you got to get the balance right. With Resident Evil 2 is like you took a little gameplay away, but you added so much graphics that the whole is still worthwhile.
So this is an interesting conversation because this kind of comes back to talking earlier about Final Fantasy VII. So Chris was just saying like RE4, even if it's a 1-for-1 remake, I'm happy with that. Like I just want to see this thing that I love remade on my like new computer with new graphics. And Matt, you're on the other side kind of saying like, but it still has to be more than that. So I'd be curious to see if they do take things out or if they go more Final Fantasy VII remake where they're adding additional things in. So would you be excited about it if they go that FF7 remake where they add things? So it's better graphics, there's extra stuff, nothing's cut.
I think what's going to happen, because right now Capcom can't really do any wrong. They're putting out these amazing games. The Resident Evil 2 remake, RE3 in my opinion was amazing. Monster Hunter World is hugely successful. So they're really striking gold, and it sounds like they really have their finger on the pulse of what their fans want. So I don't think they're going to remake one of their most beloved franchises and leave large parts of it out or fumble it or do things to piss people off. Is all like every single thing that was in the original going to be in there? Probably not. And 2 and 3 didn't have that either. But they all had their strengths, and I think it's going to still embody what made Resident Evil 4 really good. Like when I walk up to that stranger to upgrade my gun for the first time, I'm probably going to weep a little bit to see him in high res, And just really quickly talking back to RE3, because you can't really talk about this thing without mentioning what was recently released. I know it gets a lot of flack for being short, but I think it's pretty clear what Capcom was going for was streamlining that experience and making it very much just a very flash in the pan, action oriented experience. Like having beaten that game 3 times now myself, it's very much from beginning to end, just go, 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 go. There's no downtime in that game. Whereas Resident Evil 2, and this is the same for the original, you can take a knee in that game, but you can take your time at points. You can look around, you can explore, you have more freedom. The original Resident Evil 3 wasn't like that. It was more action oriented. You had Nemesis on your ass the whole time. I think they're both good in their own right, and I'm really looking forward to the 4th one.
Yeah, no, on 3, I feel like if they'd just taken an extra month and put some of those split decisions, because that was part of it, right? You're running, you're on the run, and then like the game would pause and go black and white, and 2 options would come up, like Nemesis bursts through a wall, and you can go left or right. And whichever way you go, Nemesis is going to block off your way, so you're sealed into that. You're entering this building here or here. And I just feel like that was just such a missed opportunity,
I feel like the whole pick your own adventure vibe has kind of been left in the last generation. It's been left behind. Not a lot of games do that.
I mean,
anymore.
You got an S rank in Resident Evil 3. You blew through that thing in what? Just under 3 hours?
So to be fair, my first run of RE3 remake, I beat it in just under 6 hours.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not even talking about length. This isn't a length thing.
That wasn't taking my time.
Yeah.
So I played the game methodically to enjoy it. And then I think that just adds to the fun of the game to be able to go, okay, I had that experience. Now let's see how fast I can blow through this thing.
Yeah.
And like I can dodge through zombies, I can take shortcuts, I can get items to open things early. that's part of the fun of Resident Evil,
Yeah.
and that's the same thing I did in RE2 Remake as well. I had my first playthrough as Leon. It took a little over 11 hours, and then my second playthrough I did in just over 4,
Yeah.
and got the S rank. So it's pretty much standard.
Awesome.
You know?
But how much cooler would it be if you could still play through Resident Evil again a third time, but make different decisions? And like the decisions weren't huge. They weren't like change where you end the game huge. They would just change how an area would play and what order you picked up items and all this stuff. I think that would have been cool. Then you would have had a few more playthroughs to substitute for the fact that you don't have 2 playable characters.
A piece of information you're actually missing, Matt, is so I just beat hardcore. Okay, there's assisted, standard, and hardcore. Now that unlocks nightmare mode and inferno mode. Now those modes, you obviously can't pick left or right, or do I fight Nemesis or don't I? But what they do, which is really fun, and I haven't tried it out yet, is they remix the game. So all of the items, and now this doesn't happen in hardcore, all of the items change locations. You get less of everything. Nemesis encounters you in different spaces, stuff like that.
Okay.
So you have to earn those experiences, and from what I hear, they're super punishing.
I did not know about that, and that actually changed. Like that adds the variety that I thought this game was lacking. So I half retract my point. I still think the choices would have been cool, but there is more content than I thought there was, and that works. Also, have either of you guys? I would love to see you guys try the multiplayer.
Oh, Resistance, right?
Yes.
Resident Evil Resistance. So I've watched the Easy Allies do that live on Twitch, and from what I gather, it can be fun, but it's not a finished game. There's lots of systems missing. It's kind of broken, like, you know.
Because Resident Evil 3, the original, introduced mercenaries. That was the first Resident Evil with mercenaries, kind of an arcadey, just start with some items, kill a bunch of things, see how you go. I think actually it could be beaten back in those days.
No mercenaries mode.
Yeah, so,
unfortunately.
Well, the multiplayer is apparently supposed to replace mercenaries. Instead of you just doing, like, arcade single-player trials, play it with your friends, you know?
So, unfortunately, I think from what I've seen, and I have seen a couple hours of it, the case with the multiplayer for this is it's either going to be completely forgotten in a couple of months, or it's going to be like a No Man's Sky situation where Capcom stays on it, and in a year from now, you have the next Left 4 Dead or something, you know?
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I played the most of Mercenaries with Resident Evil 4. So if they remake that, they damn well better put that in.
I hope so. And it could always be DLC down the road. Like RE2 Remake did that as well. They added all like the hunk mode in and tofu and all that stuff. The timed runs, remember we did them at your house?
Yes. Yeah, those were pretty fun.
And that was a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. It's time for our community queue. So this is the section where we take questions from our community, and we have one today from Juan. Thanks for the question, Juan. The question is about E3. With E3 canceled, maybe permanently, how do you think things will change in this year and in the upcoming years? Sam, why don't you go ahead?
There's a lot of different ways that this could go. I mean, it seems like Sony's just decided to post things on Instagram with no announcement. I think it's going to be interesting. I think a lot of places are... I don't know if there's going to be maybe more like Nintendo does their direct, if there's going to be more trailers. Like, I really don't know. There's so many different things that could happen. I would still like to see big announcements, like if each individual studio or each company can do their own presentation. Because when I'd watch things like E3, like I wouldn't tune in to E3. I'd be looking through the schedule a week before, and I'm like, okay, when is Bethesda going on? That's what I want to see. So I would like to tune in and watch things from individual studios. But
so here's
they want to put out the money to do that.
Here's the issue now, is that when E3 was initially canceled, and I think the writing was kind of on the wall, like Jeff Keighley dropped out, and the person that was in charge of all their floor planning dropped out before coronavirus really became a thing, right? And then that hit, and then it just became clear, okay, we're not going to have this conference in the summer. So everyone thought, okay, so everyone's going to do a direct, right? Just like Nintendo. Nintendo does a direct every year. They haven't done anything on stage for a couple of years now. So PlayStation will do it on their own, Microsoft will do it on their own, et cetera, et cetera. And it looked that way for a while, but just maybe a month ago, Bethesda released a statement saying, "Nope, like we're not doing that anymore." So no direct from Bethesda this year. They're going to release their news at their own pace when they're ready. There was also a leak that stated that Warner Brothers Studios was going to have their own press conference for the first time, and they were going to show an open world Harry Potter game. They were going to show a new Batman game, and several other properties that people were pretty excited about, also canceled. They put out a statement saying the same thing. We'll show these things when we're at our own pace now. So yeah, it doesn't look like it's going the way people thought it was going to.
It's definitely a hard time to figure out what to be doing, because it sounds like with E3 being canceled, like eventually it was canceled because of coronavirus, but it's almost seemed like that was a good excuse to cancel something that was dying, that was kind of on its way out. It's like, look, this just needs to end. Let's stop it. So I think right now it's hard for people to plan on, like, we can't really tell you we're going to do a big press event if we don't know what games are coming out. They might be behind schedule. They don't even know what to plan, because like you can't really plan, hey, let's do an event in August, when August we might still be on lockdown, or we may not. So I think the option to go with, we'll do things at our schedule when we can, is more to prevent things from being delayed, like saying that we're going to do an event and then having to not do it. So it's just, we'll do what we can when we can, and just wait for it and be happy when something comes out.
Yeah. I feel like, I mean, coronavirus is affecting this in two ways, right? Like, we've all seen documentaries. We see the close confines that people develop video games in, you know? They're very fancy, well-decorated cubicle farms, but they're cubicle farms. Mm-hmm. So I think it's like there's two things going on here. One, you know, the event was, for a bunch of reasons, becoming a logistical nightmare. But I think also, like, studios' production schedules have been also affected by this. You know, everything's kind of up in the air. They probably had timelines for when games were going to come out, and you don't want to announce something just to delay it in like a week because, you know, you've been set back. The other thing is, what was the other thing? I had a second point, I swear. Coronavirus, delays, video games.
A lot of games have been affected by this too. Like, you see the recent physical releases of Resident Evil, of Final Fantasy. Now that the numbers are coming back, the physical sales are way down.
Yeah.
So you can guarantee these studios are taking a big hit financially. So why announce your games when you can't hit a launch window that you had planned? You know.
I remember my other point.
Now.
I remember my other point.
Physical sales.
Oh.
Yeah.
What? This is probably a stupid question. Why is that a thing? Like, if I can't get to GameStop to buy the game, I'm just going to download it. Like, why is that preventing people from purchasing these games? I feel like I've bought more games that I would never have bought because I'm sitting there looking at my PlayStation. I'm like, yeah, sure, buy it. Versus, I'm going to go to the store and get this.
I think physical sales are easier to track. It's basically that. Physical sales are just a lot easier to track.
So physical sales are actually the only video game sales that are released to the public by any company. Yeah. So if you check the NPDs, which is it's like every couple months they release the top 20 games, like top 20 most selling games, right?
Yeah.
And they're just physical sales. They don't incorporate anything digital.
Yeah. So it's so weird.
They're very skewed, but most companies don't want to release their digital sales data.
I think it might have, this is just a theory, I'm just spitballing here, but I think from the company's viewpoint and from the digital storefront viewpoint, it's hard to discern between actual consumers and suppliers. Like, if you're GameStop and you order a bunch of copies of Resident Evil 3 to sell, they can tell that that's not final sales, that's shipped, right? And then GameStop can come back with their sales. But on a digital storefront or something like that, like, I could just go and buy 100 copies of Resident Evil 3, but then put them on a key reseller or something. and like maybe no one buys them. So there's no real indication. Like, it's a little murkier about how many of those, like, you know how much money you made, but you don't know how many of those copies actually ended up being played. You know?
Mhm.
This used to happen all the time back when there was like a crazy Steam sale on some very popular franchise. And then a few weeks later, like G2A or one of those key resellers, that shifty sites, would suddenly have a bunch of them on sale because someone went on Steam and through bot accounts and stuff, bought like 200 copies, waited till the sale was over, and then sold them at a markup. And if you don't unload those, you don't know. But if you go into a GameStop and you buy a disc, good chance you're going home to play that game and you're an actual interested consumer. That's just a theory. I don't know.
So I think my theory is two of the reasons why the physical game sales are down. One being that there's a lot of people that are just set in their ways and they only buy physical and they just don't want to get digital.
That was me.
And two being that, so you have two types of people, right? You have people like us who watch E3 press conferences and read Jason Schreier articles. And you have people on the other side who could give a shit about E3 or don't even know what it is. And they go and pick up their copy of FIFA, every year it comes out, or whatever game makes them happy. Not judging people that play FIFA. But they don't like buy into the zeitgeist. They don't follow the trends of video games. They don't know the personalities.
Don't use that word.
They don't know who Greg Miller is, or they don't know what kind of fun he is, or Andrea Renee, or anyone like that.
They're gonna love this podcast then.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think those types of people, they don't know any better. Like, maybe digital just isn't on their radar. They go to their EB Games and they get their game. And that's how they do it.
Maybe they know the guy. And trade-ins.
For any of those people watching, if you buy digital, you pay tax. You'll save like $10.
Yeah, but you can't resell. You can't resell.
And I get it.
I was going to give you 47 cents for a brand new game, anyways.
I get it.
Fair point.
I have a stack of my favorite games, physical, right beside me right now. I love them dearly. But even myself, like the last year, I haven't bought a physical game. I think Sekiro was the last one I bought a physical copy of because I'm just such a big fan of From Software. Mm-hmm. But everything else I've been buying just on PSN.
So I remembered my E3 point that I forgot earlier.
Got it. Go for it.
Then I forgot it again, but then I remembered and I wrote it down so it wouldn't happen again.
Okay.
I think another thing, with new consoles on the horizon and everything, and a bunch of major releases in recent memory, I feel like a lot of people, there was probably a lot of developers who were just going through the motions for E3. Like, they didn't really have anything coming up. I mean, all the lineups have been, dropped, basically. Thinking back to Game Awards, or what was the last big announcement type show? Probably Game Awards, right?
There's the Game Awards, yeah. In December.
How many of those have come out since?
Not a lot. I don't think so.
You sure? Because there was Wolfenstein Youngblood, that's out. Doom Eternal, that's out.
True.
A big thing for Fallout, that's out. I know these are all Bethesda titles, but that's just what's springing to mind. Elden Ring, that's in the works. The From Software.
See, that's another victim of coronavirus is Elden Ring, because they apparently had a whole presentation ready for GDC that they were going to show, like gameplay. Mm-hmm. And when GDC was canceled, there goes the Elden Ring gameplay.
Yeah, but
so it's out there somewhere.
I think a lot of studios are they're either very early into a project right now,
yeah,
or they're waiting to drop it on next gen. And I feel like there'll probably be another big award show before next gen actually hits the shelves and picks up steam. I don't know how many great announcements we would have got at this E3 regardless. I feel like it's just one of those hump years, Every couple of years, all the big studios, the consoles are at their peak. Yep. Interest is at their peak. They drop their big titles, and then you kind of go into hibernation mode. It's probably
here's what's happening. I think So Xbox revealed their console at the Game Awards, right? That was a couple months ago now.
It's a block.
Everyone it's a PC tower basically. Everyone knows what their big first party games are going to be, right? We have Halo coming. It's probably going to be another Gears of War game, stuff like that. People know what's going on for Xbox.
I think that's about it, considering how many of their franchises bit the dirt during the Xbox One era. Yeah. Bye, Fable.
Oh, and Hellblade, the new Hellblade game, which to be fair looked really great. Looked really cool.
Yeah.
The trailer really got me. But PlayStation, on the other hand, Xbox has shown their hand. PlayStation, they're holding a full house over here. Like, they haven't shown any of their launch titles yet, and you just know they're sitting on like Horizon 2 and God of War 2 and Bloodborne 2 and like Grand Theft Auto 6, and like it's just, I can't fathom the amount of hype that's going to explode when they show even one of those games. Even one of those titles would make my head explode.
Yeah, but I don't think we're going to get either of them within the next like year, 2 years probably.
No, sorry. Save them for a rainy day. Like right now, Sony's fine. If they have a moment where they're like, guys, we really need to put something out, they'll be like, good thing we have God of War sitting right here. Give that. Mark my words. I'll make you a bet right now. One of those games I just said is going to be a launch title for the PS5. One of those games. Please, God of War.
Yeah, I would put my money on God of War being an exclusive.
My money, it's going to be exclusive for sure. My money on launch titles is either Horizon 2 or Bloodborne 2. That's what I'm saying. Bloodborne 2, everyone wants it. You know they do. It made them a ton of money. It was hugely successful. It's been, 5 years?
Yeah.
4 years? That's coming for sure.
For my money, I would say God of War, based solely on the fact that it is a Sony developed. Like Santa Monica Studios is like
God of War is Sony's baby.
So the thing is, sure. God of War, like the last one, could afford to, like, it was a console seller, right?
Yeah.
The budget behind that and the expected return, it could afford to lose money. I don't think it did, but the thing about it is, like, they were like, make us a beautiful, wonderful game that will get people to buy PS4s. That was the goal.
If I were on the fence and I was deciding my console based off of what games were coming out, Horizon 2 would not be the one. Like, I will play Horizon 2. I absolutely loved Horizon. But that would not be the one that would make me go out on day one and pick it up. God of War, yes. I don't want anyone playing that before me. I will buy that console ASAP.
Well, my point was more that first-gen launch titles typically do not sell super well because very few people have the console. And Horizon and Bloodborne are both made by a third-party studio that can't take that risk. They need their games to sell, whereas if a new God of War comes out as a launch title, even if it's a limited market and they don't sell, it's going to achieve its goal, which is to sell more PS5s. And Sony will be happy, and they'll keep the studio afloat because that's what they do. Whereas if Bloodborne 2 comes out or Horizon 2 comes out and there aren't a lot of early adapters, those studios will get in big financial trouble making a game of that scale and not selling.
Yeah.
So I think God of War is the safe bet.
So before we move on, that was a great conversation, but we definitely wandered a little bit. Let's all go around one by one and just give like a little TLDR of what we think is going to happen to E3.
Right, that.
Just quickly, give me 2 sentences.
I think this may be the beginning of the end, but I don't think it'll be the end because it's just been around for too long. Like, even if it becomes a shadow of its former self, I feel like we're going to have a few little, like, Golem E3s just hanging around being gnarly before it actually ends.
Sam.
I think it's going to be mini press conferences with some trailers and some gameplay. Basically, mini E3.
I think key players don't trust the people that put on E3 anymore. I think most things are going to move to digital going forward, and they're either going to be handled by themselves or someone like Jeff Keighley is going to come forward and start something completely new all on his own, which I still think is going to be digital considering he already has the Game Awards.
Yeah.
And that's what we think about E3.
There we go.
And now it's time
Hope
for
that
bets.
answered. There you go, Juan. We got
All
around
right,
to
Yeah, to
it.
answer your E3 question of God.
There you
Straight
go.
a little
There's
bit into PS5 launch titles for a bit.
5,000 word essay. Hey, we just got to talk about what's on our mind, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of every podcast, we're going to do bets. All right. Now, the winner of the bet is going to get the final word of the podcast, and you get to sign off however you'd like. So, a saying, a movie line, a quote, whatever. You get the last words of the podcast. So, we don't have a bet for this week, obviously, from last week. So, what we're going to do to determine the winner is I'm going to roll a d20. We'll pick numbers, and whoever gets the closest gets the final word and gets to close the podcast. Now, next week, bet. So, right before the podcast next week, I'm going to go on to twitch.tv. I am going to look up Valorant because it's super hot right now, and I'm going to check the total active viewers for Valorant. So, we've made these bets before the podcast. Sam, if you could hold up your bet, how many active viewers do you think Valorant will have this time next week? 237,013. Okay.
Yep.
And Matt?
Oh, hold on. I wrote my talking points below it, so I'm scratching them out because they read like the insane.
No, he's changing his bet.
I am not. I'm going to go big. 1.6 million.
Holy shit. And my bet?
But I think I misinterpreted that. I thought.
Oh.
300,000.
I think I misinterpreted that. I thought you meant like how many people had viewed it, not how many people were actively viewing it.
I think
Hey,
you
we
might
don't
lose
know
this
how
bet,
popular
Matt.
it's going to be next week.
It could be. It could be
blow even
1.6 million
True.
people
People
watching
might hear
right
about
now.
it on this podcast and then want to go watch it.
Yeah.
Well, really, Sam has the low bet and Matt has the high bet. So,
Yeah, a little bit too high.
yeah, we'll see. So anyway, I'm going to get you guys to pick a number from 1 to 20.
17.
From 0 to 20, that is. 17?
Yeah.
Matt?
10.
And I'm going to pick 7. Rolling that d20. And the number is... Can you see it?
No.
Oh,
No. 18?
it's an 18. Sam
Aw.
wins.
Yay!
So, Sam, you get the final word and you get to sign off the podcast.
Okay. Final word. We'll keep it quick. I just wanted to say super fun. We've made it to the end of our first of many podcasts.
Yay.
I would normally shout out myself, but let's just do a group shout out. We are Antimatter Games. We
Shout out.
stream on Twitch. Shout out. We stream on Twitch. You can find us there. All that info. But yeah, we just wanted to have fun and chat to everyone and share our views on video games. So I hope we can continue to do so. And we'll play with that Steam controller.
And your sign off?
Wasn't that it?
Nope, that was the final word.
I will up one.
Say that again, you cut out a little bit.
I will come up with one. I
Okay,
didn't come up with one yet.
bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.